Denver Sports presents the Mile High Hockey Podcast with Mike Evans, presented by Fort Comfort Gutters. Now here's your host with the latest on the Burgundy and Blue, Mike Evans.
Hey everybody, welcome in. We are fired up as I am talking to you right now. We are getting ready for Avs Winnipeg game number 3. Fresh off the Avs, really showing some mental toughness. Definitely their goaltender showing some mental toughness in that Game 2 win in Winnipeg. First win of the season over the Jets, and it came at a very opportune time. Quick look back on that game, and really, you learn a lot about a team and their ability to handle adversity. And boy, the Avs were facing that, weren't they? After Game 1, they lose again to Winnipeg, 4 straight losses to Winnipeg, giving up a bunch of goals to Winnipeg, all the questions around Alexandar Georgiev. Some of the questions that I thought didn't get enough attention about the way that they were playing defensively, and that Georgiev was getting blamed for everything, which I didn't think was fair. He definitely deserved the lion's share of the blame, but not all of it. But how would they respond, right? How would they respond in a situation where really they had to have Game 2 because the stats are pretty daunting? As we learned during the course of the broadcast, maybe you knew about it beforehand going in, but that home teams who hold serve at home and go up 2-0 go on to win that series 89% of the time. Now, I'm sure the Avalanche could easily be one of the 11% that bucks those odds, but 89% is 89%. It's not something you want to try to fool with. So the fact that the Avalanche were able to get that win was huge, and the way they did it, right? I thought it was so revealing, the toughness that this team showed, that they have the 4-minute double minor after Cale Makar gets high-sticked. They don't score on that power play. 4 minutes. In fact, they only had like 1 or 2 shots. And then like seconds after, basically, after Winnipeg kills that 4-minute double minor, they score to go up by a goal in that game. And at that point, you can't help but be wondering, geez, what's going on, right? I mean, is this the Avs' year? If they have a 4-minute double minor and do nothing and look impotent in the process and then quickly give up the go-ahead goal, where's this thing going? But instead, the Avalanche responded and scored 3 goals in the final 5 minutes or so of that second period to grab control of the game. And then that third period was just a clinic. They just tightened the vice on Winnipeg to the point where, as that game was playing out, you could just see that Winnipeg had lost their gusto to fight. They knew they had been beaten. They knew they were being beaten, and the crowd knew it. The crowd was out of it. Really satisfying win for the Avalanche with the way that they went out and responded in a situation that they had to respond. And how about Alexandar Georgiev? Can we give the guy a bit of a stick tap on the ice, right? That guy was facing the pressure. He was public enemy number 1 here in Denver. The stuff that I was hearing about Georgiev, I especially was amused at the Alexandar Georgiev can never play another game for the Avalanche in his life. This has got to be the last game Alexandar Georgiev ever played for the Avalanche, game number 1. Okay, bit hyperbolic, no. While acknowledging that he had to be better, the idea that the Avalanche were just simply looking to cut ties with Georgiev is a bit ludicrous. It is worth wondering, and I know the Avalanche know, and Jared Bednar knows, and he's not going to share it with us, but had Justus Annunen been healthy, been fit, not been sick, not missed a couple of practices, would he have gotten the call in Game 2? I still think they would have gone with Georgiev to start the game, but with an understanding, hey, a quick hook if things don't go well. But I still think they would have gone with Georgiev. Something that Bednar said after Game 2, he said, look, I understand that Georgiev's gone through a rough patch here, but we're not that far removed from being the hockey team that went 9-1 right after the trade deadline, with Georgiev being a huge part of that stretch, the guy that was starting most of the games during that stretch. So we weren't that far removed from that, and it's not a stretch to think that we couldn't get back to that level pretty quickly. And so good for Georgiev. You know, you don't want to see a guy struggle like that. You don't want to see a guy trashed like that. And so I was happy to see him respond the way that he did. He was better than Connor Hellebuck in Game 2. And that leads me to looking ahead now to Game 3 here coming up tonight. And hopefully you'll have had a chance to see this before they play Game 3. But Connor Hellebuck, to me, is now the story. And Winnipeg, I guess, to a certain degree. But just like Georgiev and the Avs were the story going into Game 2, how would they respond? To me, Hellebuck and Winnipeg, that to me is the compelling storyline for tonight's Game 3. I kind of expect what I expect from the Avalanche. I kind of know what to expect. I think they're going to come out and play well. Why shouldn't they? They've been the best team in the NHL on home ice this year, the highest scoring home ice team this year. So I expect the Avalanche to play well. But Winnipeg, to me, is the wild card in this, because what kind of demons are they carrying around? What kind of ghosts do they need to exercise, right? Because last year you had a Winnipeg team that won Game 1 of their series against Vegas and then got rolled in the next 4. Hellebuck in that series last year was very good in Game 1, but then over the rest of the series was very pedestrian. Ended up finishing the series 1-4, ended up with a goals against average of about 3.5, bad, ended up with a save percentage of .886, below average. So, and this was a guy in Hellebuck who was already established as one of the top goaltenders in the NHL. Guy had already won a Vezina trophy. So you're looking at Hellebuck now, ready to win a second Vezina trophy, not having played well in these first 2 games. You know, for all the conversation that we've had around here about Georgiev, you know it is double or triple the intensity in Winnipeg and, heck, across Canada with the way that they follow all their Canadian teams in the playoffs. So Hellebuck, to me, Zion is back tonight. And how does he respond? How does Winnipeg respond? Hey, Avalanche fans, again, if you're seeing this before you go out to the game tonight, I hope it's turnabout is fair play, because that Winnipeg crowd was on Georgiev right from the start the other night with the Georgiev chants. Hey, I want to hear that tonight. I want to hear full throat from Avalanche fans. Hellebuck, Hellebuck. Let's do that derisive chant to him and see how he handles it from the get-go. A couple of Avalanche issues. It's funny because the Avs won the first or played well offensively in the first 2 games without your typical Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantenen performances. They had terrific production from their second and third lines. Cale Makar was Cale Makar. But I came away from those first 2 games feeling, wow, MacKinnon and Rantenen, I don't even think we saw them at the top of their game. Certainly Rantenen. So the idea that they'll be back on home ice, Avalanche have the last change, all those things that become important during the playoffs. I expect to see more from MacKinnon and Rantenen combined. I guess if there's one question right now, with the loss of John, continue to do with their first line besides MacKinnon and Rantenen. And now it's Zach Parise's gig to start, and he's been fine. Got a goal the other night, but you do also having watched Game 2, we saw some juggling on that top line. Parise was there. Val Nichushkin got brought up and got a healthy amount of time on that first line. Even Casey Mittelstadt got a cup of coffee on the top line. So maybe something to watch as we move forward. What that first line composition looks like beside MacKinnon and Rantenen. You got to be careful, because maybe you may be looking to give a little bit more juice to that top line, but do you run the risk of messing with not only one, but maybe 2 lines in the process? Certainly you can move Val up, but Mittelstadt centering Lehkonen and Nichushkin has done very well. You could move Lehkonen up to the top line, but again, you'd be messing with that second line. You could move Ross Colton up, I suppose, but then you'd be messing with a third line that's been playing really well. So I would suspect that keep the second line in place, keep the third line in place, unless a situation becomes dire, and then continue to roll. And hey, give Zach Parise the chance to show that he can continue to skate with MacKinnon and with Rantenen. But here we go. Avs, Game 3. Should feel really good about their chances in this one. They have home ice back. They were the best team in the NHL on home ice this year. Crowd's going to be behind them. The Avalanche coming off a really good second half of game number 2. Got a lot of momentum. And again, to me, the wild card is, what do you get from Winnipeg? What do you get from Hellebuck? Is this a different Winnipeg team? They say they're different, that they've learned their lessons. They're a different constructed team than the one that got brushed aside by Vegas in 5 games last year. Okay, let's find out. Should be fun. We'll be back again on Monday to talk about what goes on in these next couple of games and look ahead to the week that will be for the Avs. This is the Mile High Hockey Podcast presented by Fort Comfort Gutters. See you again next week.